Welcome back, everybody. We're live in the studio with Mark and Steve.
Yeah, we are back live, having a good time. And back with us again this week is Aaron Taylor, who went over sports with us last week, and we're going to do that again today. We had so much fun last week.
Yeah,
we're going to do it again. So welcome to the show again, Aaron.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Good to have you, man. Good to have you. It's I saw the show last week. Y'all did awesome.
Well, we had a good time. Mm-hmm. You know,
a lot of news, a lot of information.
We were it's. Between Aaron and I, we love talking sports together, so it's it's natural for us. So we loved it.
Very cool. Hey, I know there's a lot of flooding going on. We just saw in the news that crest just hit in Louisville. So,
but around 68 feet or something like that, right?
68, like 0.9. I mean, it's pushing 69, but it's on the decline at the lower lock between us and there. So
that's good. That's good. That means we're going to return to normal soon.
Soon, we should start to see the decline of the flood at this point.
Of course, you have to remember it hits us, and then it still has to push itself downstream. So that means it's got to crest. All the way down the Mississippi, all the way to New Orleans until it's
that's it.
It's out. So,
but we still have a lot of water backed up between the two locks, so it's not going to happen overnight. It'll take us probably several weeks to see that go back down.
I mean, we don't. Most of us don't think about it, but when the Ohio River floods, it's not just it comes up on the land, but it affects the river traffic and stops river traffic a lot, and that's commerce. That's that's where we get fuel and things like that. So. We were talking earlier, Aaron and I were talking earlier, and he was talking about how a lot of gas stations right now don't have gas, and we're just kind of speculating. Maybe that's part of it. They can't get the gas because a lot of gas comes up and down the river on the barges. They pump it out and they bring it over. So, that could be a big part of it.
And some clean coal. And
there's a lot of things. So, a lot of people are affected by those floodwaters other than just those people who are right around the river.
Right.
So, but that's, speaking of flood, 2 days ago, yesterday, the stock market, was flooded with buying and rose almost 3,000 points, I believe, yesterday, if I remember right.
Can you believe that Bitcoin is like $80-something thousand?
Yeah, but I just saw that it's 80-some thousand, but it was actually. I think it's actually about, is it 80-something again today, or is it, because it took a hit today a little bit.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was like 80. Yeah.
You remember like 10 years ago you should have bought it?
Oh my gosh,
it was like $20 for a Bitcoin, and they're worth. I mean,
we should have just been buying it up. But who knew though? I mean, how do you know that's what's going to happen?
I don't know.
That's one.
How do you know?
Yeah. How do you know?
A few people knew.
A couple. Yeah. There's at least two. There's at least two people out there that knew. Mm-hmm. But we had. And that's one of my favorite Big Bang Theory episodes is where they we did some. They saw that Bitcoin was rising, and so they said, hey, we mined some of that way back. Where is that? And it was on. They finally found the drive, and somebody had erased it, and used it for something else. And so once it's gone, man.
So in April 10th, 5 years ago, it was $6,917 a Bitcoin, and as of today, it's $83,190.
That's just insane.
I'm sorry. Oh wait, that's hold on. Let me make sure. That's April 8th. So day. Let's see. Right now it's saying 79,560.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's one of the first things I went and looked up too. Is like, okay, well, the stock market took a hit today. It was back down about 3% or so today, but it went up 7.5% yesterday. I mean, people, there's a few folks that probably got rich yesterday off of that. That's a huge spike. Of course, it's the volatility of everything with the tariffs and things like that. And speaking of tariffs, that one of the reasons that it dropped was because of that volatility and unknown. But then all of a sudden, the reason that it jumped back up was because, a lot of those tariffs were lifted or suspended, or I guess limited was the word that's being used, because I think there's still a standard 10%, but all those reciprocal tariffs have now dropped off, and they're back to just standard 10%, except for China. And then I think part of what happened today, and I'm not a financial advisor or anything, so this is not advice, but my opinion is what happened today is that China, they retaliated with more tariffs, and so now what's happened is they retaliated and we went ahead and jumped up another 25%. Mm-hmm. So now China goods are costing another 100 or 145% increase in tariff.
Amazon stopped their shipments on some inbound products from some of their manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean that's a big jump, and I mean when you're talking about I'm paying now 1.5 times what I was paying for it. You know, I pay for it and then I pay another 1.5 times.
Right.
You know, we're getting. Kathy's getting all kinds of emails and things from vendors saying, you know, the prices are going up. And, you know, whether it's on awards, a lot of the awards and stuff in the awards industry come from China. You know, that a lot of those are manufactured in China in bulk and shipped over here. And it's clothing manufacturers and things like that. They're kind of spread out all over. So some are in China, but most of the ones that we see are Bangladesh and stuff like that. So,
Taiwan.
Vietnam. And, you know, and Vietnam was one of the first ones that came out and said, hey, we'll go to zero with you if you want to go to zero. Right? Israel was another one that said zero.
It'd be nice if we had textiles in the United States. I think it'd be good.
Yeah. You and I talked about that a while back, just offhand to say, you know, why isn't there and such. And it comes down to the labor. It costs so much. And and believe it or not, to make a T-shirt, it's one of the few industries that is almost, you can't automate it really, because a T-shirt is the way you have to hold it to sew it and move and maneuver it. It's almost, you know, they can't really get the robotics just right to do that and keep it.
It requires a sensitive touch.
Yeah, so they've tried doing things like adding a stiffener to the material so that'll wash out. But then, you know, it's adding more cost to the product. But you know, who knows? There's people out there working on it, and it's one of those things. If we could figure that out, we would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I work with a guy who actually ordered a printer for a side business of his, and the printer was $24,000, and now it's going to be almost $60,000. It's coming from China.
Yeah.
So he said he's going to wait until they pause those, and then he'll order.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
probably
It's
a
going
big
to
printer,
take
huh?
China coming to the table.
It sounds like is it for garments, or is it like a direct to garment or something, or is it like a?
It's like paintings and.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a big printer. It's like
Yes.
That's canvas.
yeah.
And stuff.
I looked at. Remember you and I looked at that one up in India that time we went to that show.
Oh yeah.
That thing was like, you know, it would do a full sheet of plywood basically, paint it up, and it was insane. It was like, but that was like $80,000 for that at that time. So I'm sure the prices have come down since then, but you know. But
Not if it's coming from China.
no, definitely not if it's coming from China. So the river's coming down. The stock market came back down a little bit today. I think that we're going to see that stabilize, you know, at least for the next 90 days, because the tariffs. The only question is about China, and it is going to affect a lot of us. A lot of those. I mean, I have to say, I think that we are, as a people, have become addicted to the cheap labor of China. And so that's what kind of drives this. You know, our manufacturing has dwindled here because, well, you know, a lot of people don't, because it's easy to outsource. But I don't think when they did NAFTA, I don't think they intended for the outsourcing that happened. They were thinking, oh, well, we'll all be engineers and design and stuff like that. Well, then they started sending the engineering jobs to India. So, I mean, if right now, if you're getting into a, you know, like internet design or computer design, things like that, as far as software design, is what I'm talking, really trying to say, most of that's being done in India. And you hire a group of engineers over there, and they develop your software, do all your coding for you, and they get it back, and you just do iterations like that. But it's a lot cheaper because they make pennies on the dollar over there compared to what our engineers here.
I think it's rupees.
Yes, they do.
Rupees.
Rupees, yeah, this is rupees, which are pennies on the dollar. But it's and maybe even pieces of pennies on the dollar. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is, but yeah, but that's the whole point.
Did you see where the president's office had pulled $8 million of taxpayer dollars that went to Politico to help fund news.
Was that the same? And I didn't see this latest one, but I did see that they had one where they were buying subscriptions. Right? They were paying for subscriptions to Politico for different offices around Washington D.C. and that was coming out of our pocket. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff. It's like, well, they're not buying it from they're not buying subscriptions to the Messenger. They're not buying subscriptions to the Courier Journal. They're buying it to Politico, and why? Because Politico's doing their bidding, in my opinion. So
I love how they announced that too. The Speaker of the House just told everybody that was sitting there in the media, like, "I'm glad you're here for this, but we've cut $8 million of your funding."
Yeah.
I like Mike Johnson.
And the colleges are getting pulled funding as well for supporting the protests and not supporting the students.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I think had to happen. You can't keep what is it? I was trying to think who was it that had the 400 million hit the other last week or something like that. They took $400 million. Was it Princeton? Yeah. $400 million. So $400 million is being spent on taxpayer funds of taxpayer funds to support Princeton College, and then they're going in creating
$4 million. Yeah, that's correct.
400 million.
$4 million for Princeton.
Well, what was the one that was 400 million? There was one that was 400 million. There was one that was like 800 million. That it might have been Harvard, because Harvard announced something the other day, but I can't remember what the number. So Columbia was 400 million. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but they still have a ways to go, I think, before they'll get that money back. So, but I mean, it's just that Columbia is the forefront right now, or at least the example of what's going on or what's going wrong with our educational system, whether it's more important for them to be able to protest and be anti-Semitic. I mean, you can't allow that on a college university or a college campus where you have to protect all the students. You can't just allow these quote unquote protests to drive a ideology like that and to affect one group of people like that. There's no reason. I mean, it's not like they just went there and held up signs and said we protest. Nobody complains about that, but they held people hostage. They took over buildings.
They treated people.
They hurt
unjustly.
people.
They showed the same problem we had when we broke out of racist oppression. Martin Luther King's demonstrations when he would protest and walk the streets, and then they would attack him. That's not right.
That's not right.
That's what we've come from. We said we're not doing that.
We were trying to move. I felt like the United States had moved past a lot of that, but it seems like they just reversed it now.
I don't say
know we need to make it equal.
I think that's
certain groups in the United States.
And the influence that came from. I mean, they're finding out some of these folks that are coming over here on visas because we are outsourcing. So what are we doing? Colleges are paying to, the state countries are paying for these students to come over here and get a quality education, and they bring with them those ideologies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I understand some of the angst, but the United States cannot allow that type of hatred and to exist like that.
Yeah,
we have to figure out. When you come here, you're supposed to figure out how do you blend in and fit in. And it seems like a lot of what we've heard over the last 10 or so years has been, how do we separate more and more and more? How do we break up into our tribes again? And instead of us moving forward together, how do I get my piece? And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't feel like I'm any better off than anybody else. We all go through our ups and downs, and the difference between some of us and others are, some of us are out there, and it doesn't matter what race you are. If you're out there working and hustling to try to make it happen and trying to make a better life for you and your family, that's the American way. It's the attempt to make your life better. That's the American way. The American way is not, do I have stuff? That's not the American way. It's the journey to get there, not the end game.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, politics is going to be politics, but I definitely don't want to send my kids to a school where they're going to be ridiculed for a belief that they have instead of being treated as a decent human.
No, I agree with that. I mean, that's something that's still going to be on the next election. Is going to be a lot of that's going to be about how do you get school choice and things like that. So
boys and boys sports and girls and girls sports. And speaking of sports, that brings Aaron back into the show.
So, well, again, Aaron, welcome back to the show. And I had a great time last week running down sports with you, and so we wanted to invite you back and have you, and let's do it again.
Yeah, well, I think he invited me back just so that I could take the walk of shame because 0 for 2 on my NCAA championship picks. Yeah, I had Auburn and Duke, and neither one made it.
Well, I had Auburn and Duke as well, I believe.
I had Duke,
but
I lost on the
but
other side.
I had Auburn winning, and you had Duke winning, and so really we're both 0 and 2. Because neither one of us, really made it to the finals, right? So,
but as a diehard Kentucky fan, hey, it's okay that Duke didn't make it.
Yeah, and I was, right? And I was happy with the outcome. I thought it went. I thought it was great. It was a great game. Houston and Florida, and it lived up to every bit of the hype, and with the chalk being with all 4 number ones, it was Normally it's like you get blowouts, but nobody got blown out, and but Duke. What happened with Duke? I want to talk about that for a second, because that Duke Houston game to me mirrored exactly what happened, or was an exact reflection of what happened with Kentucky Duke. Duke was dominating most of that game. And into that last 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and they were tired. They were tired. Cooper Flagg was as great as he is. When you get tired, you get tired.
And he turned the ball over at the wrong time twice, and he did the same thing against Kentucky.
Same exact thing.
Phenomenal player, obviously, National Player of the Year. But
he's going to be a great NBA player.
It's funny because, if you go back into, we could say the same thing about Kentucky, but Duke has been the favorite, even when Coach K was there many, many years. And it shows you the March Madness, but it also shows you it is so hard to win this thing. And it's getting even harder. I saw a stat. I didn't get a chance to write it down or investigate it, but it was basically saying there was no McDonald's All-Americans on these championship teams. So that's crazy outside of Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Crazy. When you're a Kentucky fan, when you're, 6, 7, 8 deep sometimes, not to have any on this team.
That doesn't seem likely, especially with the transfer portal.
Walter Clayton Jr., all these guys that were putting up big numbers, they just out of the gate, out of high school.
One thing that's one thing I do like about the transfer portal. There's a lot of things I don't like, but one thing I do like is the fact that late bloomers get their due.
That's right.
Right, because there's so many guys. They get to grow. They get to mature. They get wisdom. And when they get that wisdom, they get their due, because now they're able to go and play in the big lights, under the big lights, and show their talent. And a lot of these guys are going to make it to the NBA now that may not have been if the transfer portal didn't work in their favor.
Not only the transfer portal, but if you go back 10 years ago when these TV contracts started putting all these March Madness games on TV, to where who was it, Derek White, who played for Iowa State,
right?
Kentucky, and, he was screaming at the camera, "This is my house," right before Kentucky throttled him in the second half. But the guys like that, Davidson, Steph Curry, we got to see those runs because Davidson was on TV when they.
That's what makes March Madness so cool, man. That's what makes March Madness so cool.
Especially even if you're an avid college basketball watcher, you get to see some guys or some teams that you haven't really got to watch, and they just put on a show, and it comes down to the last shot, or it comes down to a bonehead play like Cooper Flagg had, something like that. That just turns it on its head, and it's like, man, this is what we love college basketball.
I do. It is. It's what gets me excited about college basketball, and I'm glad. Kentucky didn't win. We said it last week. I didn't expect Kentucky to win this year. I love the ride, but this Final Four was a great Final Four.
Had SEC representation and had an SEC champion.
Yeah.
Florida, of course, defeated Houston 65-63, marking Florida's third title, first since Billy Donovan and the Joe Kim Noah-led Gators back-to-back titles in 06 and 07. Houston, real fast. Houston, 7 Final Four appearances, third national championship appearance. No wins.
No wins.
That's a heartbreaking stat for the fan base. Any Houston Cougars out there, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what it was, 82, 83, 83, 84, was that it was? 83, 84. I think it was 83, 84.
Jimmy Valvano.
Valvano. Yeah, he was.
I was born in '83, so
that was that year. I mean, when he beat Villanova, right?
Yeah.
And
where he didn't know who to hug.
Yeah, he was looking for anybody. Somebody come hug me. But I mean, I really had a lot of respect for that man. He was what he had to go through in his family and everything. So. But just to kind of, I remember those teams growing up. I mean, that was the time period when I was really getting into college basketball as a young person, and there was a lot of great basketball played back then. There's still a lot of great basketball played today, but the way I look at it is, if those guys had the training regimen that the guys have now, how much better would they have been? Back then, and
they were outside smoking heaters, not sleeping in hyperbaric chambers. That's the difference.
That's the difference,
Those athletes.
Nobody knew how to take care of their bodies back then, but man, it's incredible.
Okay, so of course, big news on the horizon. Both Louisville and Kentucky busy in the transfer portal, and of course their own recruits that they're getting.
Oh yeah.
But in Kentucky news, Mark Pope once again finding some stellar guys, on paper at least, that looks like they're shaping into a competitive team once again.
Yeah, I agree. Jaden Quaintons is, he was that name may be familiar to a lot of the UK fans out there, because he was recruited to UK 2 years ago by Calipari, and when Calipari left, he decided to put his name into, or to reopen his recruitment, and he ended up at Arizona State. Now, and he is a beast. If he's healthy, he's a beast. The one question about him is he's had that knee injury, and he's just a few weeks into the recovery. Now they're saying his recovery is way ahead of schedule, and that was part of his recruitment. It was to talk about that and see where he was, and according to all the doctors, everything's going great, and he's going to be ready for the season, but. It's still, it's a question mark.
A big question mark, and also you got to think with Pope, the injuries Kentucky went through, Pope's probably like, if there was a red flag, he would have probably stayed clear of that. So it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence that Pope went on and
we
brought him in knowing that.
And Kentucky's got excellent trainers and doctors to evaluate this and make sure everything's going well. Another thing to look at is so besides Jaden Quaintons, there's also we had a couple of others this last week. Jalen Lowe, and he came out of Pittsburgh, and then you had I always mess up his name.
I say Mohamed.
It's Mohamed Diabate is what I think it's Mohamed Diabate. We've seen him play. He's out of Alabama, so we've seen him play.
Yes.
He's one of those guys that were killing us on the boards, and that's something we needed some help with. So I'm really excited about him. He's not so much a scorer, I don't think. He's more
of a rim protector.
He's a rim protector, yeah.
Rebound grabber.
And energy. He's got a lot of energy. Yeah. And then what was the last one? Was
Cam Williams.
Cam Williams. Yeah, he was the first one that came in, and kind of got everything rolling. When Cam Williams came in, everybody was starting to say, "Well, what's wrong with Kentucky? They can't get anybody in the transfer portal." And man, what a difference a week makes.
Yeah, and if you remember last year, I mean, it was all the way up the last day, maybe the day before, and here it was like, who are we going to put on the floor? And then we had a full roster. So it can drop at any time. I do want to point out Jalen Lowe, though. I don't know if you got a chance to kind of look at his game.
I did not get a lot to look at it.
Last week, I wanted to talk about him because I thought, according to a lot of multiple reports, I saw that Jalen Lowe was a top priority. But this guy's a point guard. He averaged 19 points per game, 6 assists per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, low turnover ratio. And this looks like the type of point guard that Pope likes because he's a leader on the floor as well. Great attitude.
Yeah.
And if you can say anything about the team,
He's
this past
6'2",
year-
right? I think he's 6'2".
I think so. 6'2", 6'3".
About 180 pounds or something like
And
that.
I think that
Point guard size.
point guard size, at least 1995 point
Guard size, yeah.
Ben Simmons, I guess, is considered a point guard today.
Yeah,
but
that's
anyway,
true.
But if you look at it, I think like the attitude of Kentucky. I love the players that we had because they had that pride that we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm.
That want to be here. Kind of sad to leave, not just sitting there looking at the draft stock. And I think that's the kind of guy we got with Jalen because he transferred. Still 3 years of college eligibility.
Yeah. He's he's still new.
It's still new.
And he's athletic, and I think that he's going to really fit into Mark Pope's scheme. But he's got a little bit of competition there.
Yep.
I mean, there are other guards coming in, but I think he's got the kind of like the lead right now as far as being the starting point guard for Kentucky next year. You've got, but also the other, we have freshmen coming in too.
right.
So run those down for us.
Jasper Johnson, 6'4", 175-pound guard from Lexington. He's going to be joining the
Another
mix.
homeboy.
Another homeboy. And then you've got Malachi Marino. He's actually from Georgetown.
Right next door.
6'11", 230 pounds. I've heard nothing but people raving about this guy's athleticism. Can jump out of the gym. Is going to be a defensive anchor for sure. And then a Caden Lewis, 6'2". Now this one was kind of odd to me.
So he and Jalen Lowe are similar
very
sizes and very similar athletes.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. When I saw that we signed them, it was like, oh my gosh, we got kind of mirror images.
They're twins, in a lot of ways.
If you notice, or if you can think back, if we just had more depth at the point guard position, Kentucky would have been a lot better off.
Well, I mean,
We really
injury
struggled
bug
when
killed
Jackson
us.
Robinson went down.
Injury bug killed us. Jackson Robinson went down. Lamont Butler was hurt.
100%, yeah.
And then, of course, our backup, it was supposed to be Lamont Butler is our point guard, and his backup was supposed to be Jackson Robinson and Kirk Kriisa. And which, it's, again, I told you last week, it saddens me that Kirk Kriisa's left. It's a bummer, but
Bearcat.
oh my gosh, right up the river,
Have fun.
But I wish him well. I love that kid. He had
I'm so petty.
you can't be. But I mean, I love the energy that it brought and stuff, and the fact that he was so excitable on the court. I don't think he was a great player. But I think he was definitely serviceable as a backup, and they played good enough defense. I thought that he earned that backup spot pretty well. He wasn't going to be the stopper that Lamont Butler is, because you can even see it back then that the way Lamont Butler would come in and shut down another point guard or another guard. But they played a lot slower when he was in the game, and then Kirk Kriisa come in and it's push. Yeah. Well, so you had one that was done through defense, and the other's done. We hold the other team by pushing offense, and so it was a kind of a cool 1-2 punch. That's what I enjoyed about it, up until he got hurt, of course. And that play was a freak play that he got hurt on. It was just so weird. It's just a misstep or something, and then you're done for the year.
Yeah, and it looked like, to me, it wasn't like it was going to be season ending. And then
No, I mean, they didn't think so. They thought it was like 4 to 6 weeks. Same
thing with Robinson's wrist.
Yeah. Robinson's wrist was the one that got me. But
according to reports by Matt Jones, this KSR, Kentucky will be involved with Sam Houston State guard Lamar Wilkerson. Now, this one here, this could be finalized today, tomorrow. I think the transfer portal closes the 22nd. Or is it earlier than that? Should I?
I want to say the 18th.
We don't know the answer to.
Yeah, maybe not. But I was thinking it was the 18th, but maybe it is the 22nd.
Well, regardless, it's going to be closing soon. We got 2-3 weeks, whatever, right before the NFL draft. I know that's when it's going to end. But Lamar Wilkerson, 6'5" guard. He 20.5 points per game from 47% from the floor, and just under 45 from three.
I mean, he is the guy. He's a missing piece for us.
Absolutely.
As good as we shot the ball this year from three, I mean, we had some lulls. Don't get me wrong. But we still shot the ball pretty well as a team, and but we're losing a lot of that. A lot of those guys, Brea's gone. Andrew Carr's gone. So you can look. Most of our 3-point shooting is gone. Now we do retain. I mean, I think
Oweh is going to be a huge.
Oweh is going to be huge coming back for us. That's a big deal. because that is the energy of the team.
And he could be a National Player of the Year candidate.
He could.
He really
could. I mean, he played so well this year. I was super happy with that guy. He's such a great guy, a great young man, and
learning that his brother plays for the Ravens. Like,
yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
It's like
professional athlete blood.
Yeah, and he knows how to push himself, and he's really good at understanding the score and time and when he needed to do something compared to letting others do lead, but then when they needed it, he was there almost every time. I mean, there was very few times that he he scored in double digits all but one. Is it just one or two?
Yeah, again, that's a question on the air that I don't know the answer.
I think it was just one or two times he didn't score in double digits.
Trying to put me on the spot.
Well,
the big thing about it too was I always, the one thing that I thought Kentucky was missing was that guy that could go get a bucket by himself. The team struggling, put the ball on the floor, ISO guy. This is what this Lamar Wilkerson brings to the table.
Yeah,
he can put the ball on the floor, get to the cup, outside shooter. Plus, he's a good finder.
And he'll be another good one to complement with Owe. And if you put him in there with my mind just went blank. If you get him in there with the what was his name? The other Wildcats. If you put them on the floor with Wildcats, we're going to score.
Coached by Pope.
Sorry, I was trying to remember the other name we just talked about. Jalen Lowe.
Okay.
If you pair, if you got those three guys out there, because he at 6'5", in college he can play the small forward or the two guard, so you can legitimately see those three guys on the floor at the same time, and that holds down the backcourt completely. Now, the front court, I think we got some good guys, and we're still after one possibility. So, we can't get both. The way it stands right now, we can't get both Wilkerson and this other guy, who is
okay. Well, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, but Alfonso, I was going to let you say the last name. I'm going to call him Folgers in your cup, but it's Folgaris.
I think it's
Alvaro.
I think it's Folgaris.
See, that's Dora the Explorer right there for it. Alvaro, I'm going to stick to that. Listen, let me take you on a journey.
Yeah.
The great thing that Mark Pope's offense had last year, and I'm going to miss him terribly, even though he should have learned how to dunk the ball. But Amari Williams.
Yes.
Amari Williams was such a good find in the transfer portal. I think we kind of took him
Tremendous
for granted.
passer.
Tremendous passer, brought the ball up the floor, was able to kind of see the floor and be able to facilitate as a big man.
Yeah.
It created so many different mismatches. It got Kobe Bryant loose on screens and things like that. It was really fun to watch and really fun to see. And this guy here, Folgaris, Folgers, Alfonso, Alfizarazo.
Let's call him AF.
Listen, I know everybody's excited about the Lamar Wilkerson because I listened to it all day yesterday. People are really excited about him. I really would not be sad if this is the guy we go to. This guy's got good size. He's from Robert Morris, Horizon League Player of the Year. Yep. And listen to these stats, man. 14 points a game, 55% shooting from the floor, 41% from deep. I mean,
that's for a big man.
For a big man, Garrison, he tried to kind of work in the three-pointer especially towards the end of the season.
Garrison was serviceable at the three.
But Pope said, he'll work on it. So who knows? He might turn into a sharpshooter.
He's back. So,
but this guy, 41% from three, 9 rebounds, 3 assists per game. Now remember, this isn't the NBA where they're playing 48 minutes.
Right. This is
2 college has 40 minutes for a big man to average 3 assists a game. That's fantastic.
I mean, these stats are very similar to what you saw from Amari Williams, probably around that 9-10 point mark per game. His rebounds were probably a little bit under this. I don't think Amari Williams was as strong a rebounder as he could have been. But he, as a passer, man, for a big man, he was, and the thing is I don't know if Amari Williams was a great passer before he came to Kentucky or if Mark Pope made him a great passer, because it's one thing that Mark Pope emphasizes for the big men. They have to, we're going to see that from now on. The big men have to be able to pass the ball, and so they work on it and work on it and work on it. And so I think that it was, he obviously you have to have a good eye. but you can be trained into being a good passer. And I think that the if you take this coming in, couple that with Mark Pope and his system, man, this could be really big.
It sounds like this guy may have a head start on learning how to pass.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, absolutely. It's we're in agreement. So
that's what I'm excited about. Real quick before we switch gears, Louisville, Pat Kelsey sounds like he may be getting a contract extension. I don't know if you saw this or not. He's making about $2.5 million, so he's really struggling.
yeah.
The eggs prices and stuff like that, it's killing him.
Well, I mean, they have like an unlimited NIL budget over there,
Yeah,
so
well,
they can afford to pay their coach a little bit more.
They're going to have to put gas in their coach's car because he had a phenomenal first season. Of course, after coming off the 2 years that Louisville had previous, this was like they had just hired.
Yeah, this is candy. This is candy.
Yeah. So, but they signed a 5-star recruit. I saw a way too early projection. They have Louisville listed at number 5.
I saw that.
Yikes. So little brother,
Yeah.
making noise.
Well, I mean, they had them making noise this year. We still were able to take care of business there, take care of business, and they were fighting it out in the ACC. And the ACC was down though. I mean, that's why Louisville didn't have, whether they ended up a 9 seed or an 8 seed. That's why they didn't. And then of course when they look what happened in the tournament.
Yeah,
So
but you had Duke, Clemson, and Louisville. It was like a 3-headed monster. And
and they were whipping everybody else, but there were no quad 1 wins.
Yeah.
Outside of that, that's why their resume didn't look as tight, and why Kentucky's resume looked better because there were quad 1 wins and games all over the place in the SEC this year. Almost every time you played, it was a quad 1.
Yeah, I compared it to the SEC football schedule. I mean,
it's really about the same thing.
You were playing a ranked team every week. All right, so last thing I want to get to just real fast.
And this one interests me.
This one interests me too because I love the game of baseball.
Yeah,
I love it. Played it as a kid. It was one of the first sports I ever learned to play. I played multiple sports, but
tossing ball is easy. Do it anywhere.
I was an Oakland A. I played for the A's, so I was an Oakland A's guy. Loved Jose Canseco and Ricky Henderson. I'm 7-8 years old and watching the Bass Brothers. So this interested me. The New York Yankees, actually, we were together. We were driving around, and I was in your truck, and I said, man, the Yankees just hit 9 home runs in the game. You remember this, right?
Yeah, I remember. We were talking
just a couple weeks ago. And I said, it didn't really register to me because I didn't know anything about this. But they're called torpedo bats. They've now used a different bat. Now, what's interesting, I always got told that being a Yankees fan is like going to a casino and rooting for the dealer. So let me preface that with that. But this was actually designed by Aaron Leonard, a former Yankees analyst. So that just, when I read this, I thought, wow, we've got, former Yankees employees now building bats. But anyway, so the torpedo bat, I'll take you through this. So what it is it's kind of designed to where the shaft or the shift of all the mass goes from the end of the barrel towards the center. So basically you're making the sweet spot bigger.
Yeah, it's I would describe it as, and I've seen this described as, because they're called torpedo bats, but they're also called bowling pin bats.
Bowling pin bats, yeah.
Yeah, so because it's shaped, the end of it is shaped like a bowling pin, more like the what they call those. There's a specific bowling pin. It's a real thin bowling pin. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's a different type of bowling pin game, but bowling game. But this reminds me of just to kind of describe it, if for you golfers out there, it's almost looks like they're taking the same concept that's in your driver, where you have the big face, and they've taken the driver, and instead of having the flat driver, they've rounded the face. It's rounded in both directions. Well, the bat is already rounded in one direction, so they just now have rounded the other direction. And in golf, at least, it helps offset some of, like, if you miss, it's a smaller miss. And so I think that's what we're talking about here when you look at it.
So the New York Yankees introduced this bat, and as it stands today, they've already hit 25 home runs, and they've scored 78 runs.
Yeah.
Now, that's only second in the league. There's actually a team that's hit more home runs than them this year, but they've got 25 as a team. They also smashed 9 home runs in a single game, and that's the only that puts them at second place, only behind the Blue Jays, who hit 10 home runs in 1987. Other players are now experimenting with this new torpedo bat or the bowling pin bat, including Cincinnati Reds phenom Ellie Deli. Ellie Dela Cruz, I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's actually using this bat now as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen a game with him play. It's been a little bit tough for me to catch Reds games this year, so I'm excited to see how this works. I mean, there hasn't been a huge innovation in baseball bats in probably since they went to, it's been at least 100 years.
Yeah.
Other than the material it's made out of, as far as whether it's an ash wood or maple wood or hickory or what have you, but beyond that, it's been a Louisville Slugger basically since the
Paul
1800s.
Revere's Midnight Ride.
Yeah, pretty much. But this is interesting. I think it's a cool concept. It like you said, it just shifts some of the weight from the end to the middle, creates a bulge area in the middle, and it seems like it's very, very forgiving for a player. So. That's I think that's all we have for today. Aaron, thanks again for coming in and sitting in with us again this week. Hopefully we'll get you back next week. Steve, thanks for producing and helping us out tonight.
No problem.
Next week we'll have a little bit more news and politics, but we're kind of excited about the sports section here, so we're trying to build it up a little bit.
Sounds groovy.
All right.
Y'all did great.
Thanks, guys. All right, everybody have a good night.